The Aztec Empire, one of the most fascinating and complex civilizations in pre-Columbian Americas, rose to power in the 14th century and became one of the most influential cultures in Mesoamerica. The empire's achievements in agriculture, architecture, art, and religion were monumental, and yet its sudden fall in the early 16th century, after the arrival of Spanish conquistadors, remains a dramatic chapter in world history. In this video, we will explore the rise and fall of the Aztec Empire, examining its origins, its peak, and the factors that led to its downfall. To understand the rise of the Aztec Empire, we need to go back to the early 14th century, when a group of nomadic people known as the Mexica arrived in the Valley of Mexico. The Mexica, who would later become known as the Aztecs, were part of a larger group of Nahuatl-speaking peoples who had migrated from the north. They were not initially a powerful force in the region, and their early years in the valley were marked by struggles for land and power. The Mexica settled on a small, swampy island in Lake Texcoco, a harsh environment that seemed to offer little promise. However, according to Aztec mythology, their god Huitzilopochtli had instructed them to build their city where they saw an eagle perched on a cactus with a snake in its mouth. When they arrived at this location, the vision came true, and the Mexica founded Tenochtitlán around 1325, a city that would later become the heart of their empire. Tenochtitlán's location provided a significant advantage. The island was easily defensible, and the surrounding lake offered ample resources. The Aztecs were able to develop an intricate system of canals and causeways that allowed them to transport goods and people efficiently, creating a thriving economy. Over time, the Mexica began to expand their influence, not by force of arms initially, but through a combination of alliances and tribute systems. By the 15th century, the Aztecs were one of the most powerful forces in Mesoamerica. Their empire expanded through military conquest, diplomacy, and tribute relationships with neighboring city-states. They formed a crucial alliance with two other powerful city-states, Texcoco and Tlacopan, known as the Triple Alliance. This alliance enabled them to dominate much of central Mexico, with Tenochtitlan as the political and cultural center. The Aztecs were not merely conquerors, they were also exceptional administrators and organizers. They had a centralized political system, with an emperor, or Huitzilopochtli, at the top. The emperor was seen as a divine representative of the gods on earth, and his authority was absolute. The Aztec Empire was divided into provinces, each governed by a ruler who was loyal to the emperor. These local rulers paid tribute in the form of goods, such as food, textiles, and precious metals, which helped support the growing population of Tenochtitlan. The Aztecs' military prowess was legendary. They had a highly organized and disciplined army, with a focus on capturing prisoners for religious sacrifices rather than outright destruction of enemies. This focus on sacrificial warfare, known as flower wars, was not only a spiritual act but also a political one. The captives were offered to the gods as a way to ensure the continuation of the cosmos and the survival of the empire. This religious aspect of warfare set the Aztecs apart from many other cultures, and their ability to conduct large-scale battles while maintaining a degree of political stability was a key factor in their success. By the early 16th century, the Aztec Empire had reached its peak. Tenochtitlan, with its impressive temples, palaces, and marketplaces, was one of the largest cities in the world. It had an estimated population of 200,000 to 300,000 people, making it larger than contemporary European capitals like Paris or London. The city was a marvel of engineering, with its grand pyramids and causeways cutting through the lake, connecting different parts of the city. At the heart of Tenochtitlan stood the Templo Mayor, a massive pyramid dedicated to the gods Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc. The temple was a center of religious life, where priests performed elaborate ceremonies and sacrifices. The city also boasted a complex system of canals, which facilitated trade and transportation, and a bustling marketplace known as the Tlatelolco, where merchants from all over Mesoamerica gathered to exchange goods. Economically, the Aztecs had developed a sophisticated agricultural system. They used chinampas, or floating gardens, to grow crops on the lake. These artificial islands were highly productive, enabling the Aztecs to sustain their large population. The agricultural surplus also allowed the empire to engage in extensive trade, both within the empire and with distant regions. The Aztecs traded goods such as cacao, textiles, obsidian, and jade, and in return, they received items like cotton, feathers, and luxury goods from distant areas. Aztec society was highly stratified, with a clear distinction between the elite and the common people. The emperor and the noble class held the highest status, followed by priests, warriors, and merchants. The majority of the population were commoners, who worked the land or served in other roles. At the bottom of the social hierarchy were slaves, who were typically prisoners of war or those who had fallen into debt. Religion played a central role in Aztec life. The Aztecs believed in a pantheon of gods, each responsible for different aspects of the natural world. The most important of these gods were Huitzilopochtli, the god of the sun and war, and Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god associated with wisdom and creation. The Aztecs believed that the gods had created the world, and that they required regular offerings of blood and sacrifice to maintain the cosmic order. Human sacrifice was a key element of Aztec religious practice, and it was carried out on a massive scale, especially during times of war or in times of crisis. The fall of the Aztec Empire did not come overnight, and it was not solely the result of the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors in 1519. In fact, by the time Hernán Cortés and his men arrived in Mexico, the Aztec Empire was already facing significant internal challenges. One factor contributing to the empire's decline was the constant need for military conquest. The Aztecs relied on an ever-expanding system of tribute to sustain their growing empire, but this also meant that they had many enemies. The very system that had helped the Aztecs rise to power, the tribute system and the practice of capturing prisoners for sacrifice, had created a large pool of discontent among the neighboring peoples. Many of these groups saw the Aztecs as oppressive overlords and were eager for an opportunity to rebel. Another factor was the strain that the empire's expansion placed on its resources. The Aztecs' military campaigns and the need to maintain control over distant regions stretched their resources thin. The empire was also beginning to experience social unrest as the demands of tribute and warfare weighed heavily on the lower classes. Additionally, the constant pressure to supply the gods with sacrifices led to further tensions within Aztec society. The arrival of the Spanish, led by Hernán Cortés in 1519, marked the beginning of the end for the Aztec Empire. At first, Cortés was welcomed by the Aztec Emperor Moctezuma II, who saw him as a potential ally, or even as the return of the god Quetzalcoatl. However, this initial hospitality quickly turned into conflict. Cortés and his men, along with indigenous allies who had long been subjugated by the Aztecs, began a series of skirmishes with the Aztec forces. The Spanish, armed with superior weaponry, including guns and horses, were able to make significant gains. In 1521, after months of siege and fighting, the Aztec capitals of Tenochtitlan fell to the Spanish. The city was devastated by disease, especially smallpox, which had been introduced by the Europeans. The combination of military conflict, the spread of disease, and the alliance of many indigenous groups with the Spanish led to the collapse of the Aztec Empire. The empire that had once controlled a vast portion of Mesoamerica was gone in a matter of years. The rise and fall of the Aztec Empire is a testament to the complexity and fragility of civilizations. The Aztecs were remarkable builders, warriors, and organizers who created a powerful and thriving empire in a relatively short period of time. However, their reliance on tribute, military conquest, and human sacrifice, along with the internal and external pressures they faced, ultimately led to their downfall. The arrival of the Spanish, while a major factor, was just the final blow in a series of events that had been set in motion long before Hernán Cortés set foot in Mexico. Today, the legacy of the Aztecs lives on through their art, architecture, and cultural contributions. While their empire may have fallen, their influence on Mesoamerican culture and history remains a lasting part of the region's heritage.